After spending some time with it, I thought it might be helpful to share what I have noticed so far. This is not the kind of electric bike I grab for a quick, casual ride around the block. I see it more as something for people who want a lot of assistance on hills, want to ride longer distances without stressing about the battery every day, or want a bike that feels steady on rough pavement, dirt paths, and broken streets. If you are looking for something light that you can carry upstairs easily, this is probably not that bike. If you want something that feels planted and strong under you, it starts making more sense. What makes it interesting to me is how it blends a bicycle layout with a more motorcycle-like stance. The frame lines are bold, the tires are wide, and the suspension is not subtle. It looks serious, and in daily use it also feels serious. The first time I rolled it around before even riding it, I noticed the weight right away. It takes some effort to turn it in tight spaces, and if you have a narrow garage, a small shed, or a crowded hallway, you will feel that size. Once I was actually riding, that weight mattered less, and in a weird way it became part of why I felt stable. The tires are 20 inches in diameter and 4.5 inches wide, and that changes the whole experience. On rough pavement, the bike does not get knocked around as much as a normal tire would. When I hit potholes or those long cracks in the road, the front end did not feel twitchy. On dirt, the tires helped me stay confident even when the surface changed from hard packed to loose. I would not pretend it magically makes every surface easy, but I spent less time worrying about traction than I do on slimmer tires. The suspension setup also plays a big role. Up front there is a hydraulic fork, and in the rear there is a shock that takes the edge off bigger hits. On a typical commute route, I have a stretch of road with patched asphalt and a couple of sharp dips near storm drains. On a normal bike, I slow down and brace for it. On this bike, I still slow down, but I do not tense up the same way. It feels more forgiving, especially when I am seated. Speaking of seating, the saddle is wide and soft, and it is one of the first things I appreciated on longer rides. I did a couple of rides where I stayed in the seat for a long time, and I walked away less sore than I expected. It is more of a relaxed riding position. If you like a sporty, forward lean, this may feel too laid back. For me, it matched the personality of the bike. When it comes to power, it is the main story here, and it is also the part you need to respect. It uses two motors rated at 1250 watts each, and when both are active, you can feel the push immediately. The acceleration is strong enough that I had to change how I ride at intersections. On some electric bikes, you can be a little sloppy with the throttle or assist level, and it just sort of rolls forward. On this one, if you are not paying attention, it will jump ahead faster than you planned. It is fun, but it also means you need to ride it with intention. There are different drive options you can switch between, and I actually used them more than I expected. When I was cruising on flatter roads, I did not always need both motors. When I hit steep hills, or a rougher section where I wanted steady pull, I switched to dual drive. I also tried the super dual drive mode, and that is the one I treated like a special tool, not something I left on all the time. It is useful when you want maximum help for a short stretch, but it can also drain the battery faster, and it can feel like too much in crowded areas. Battery range is always tricky because it depends on how you ride, how much you weigh, wind, hills, temperature, and how often you use throttle. With that said, the battery on this bike is clearly built for going far. I did not do a 200-mile ride, but I did enough riding to feel like range anxiety is not a constant thing here if you ride with some restraint. If I used moderate pedal assist and kept my speed reasonable, the battery dropped slowly. If I rode harder, used more throttle, and leaned on both motors, I watched the battery level fall a lot faster. That is normal. The important part is that the battery felt consistent. It did not suddenly sag or feel unpredictable. I also like that it has a battery management system watching over it, because this is the kind of battery you want to treat carefully over time. In colder mornings, I noticed the bike still delivered power smoothly, though like most batteries, it felt a little less eager at the start until everything warmed up. In hot weather, I did not see any obvious problems, but I still avoid leaving it sitting in direct sun for long periods. That is just basic battery care. Braking is solid. It uses hydraulic disc brakes, and I appreciated the control. This bike can move quickly, and it is heavy, so you need brakes that feel steady and predictable. When I had to stop quickly because a car rolled through a parking lot lane without looking, the bike slowed down in a controlled way without feeling sketchy. I did spend some time dialing in the brake feel after setup, and I recommend checking brake alignment and lever feel before you do any fast riding. Lighting is better than what I see on many electric bikes. The headlight is extremely bright, rated at 2000 lumens, and it throws light far enough that I can actually ride before sunrise and see what I am doing. The rear light also reacts when you brake, which I like because it adds a bit more awareness for anyone behind me. I still wear reflective gear when it is dark, but having a serious headlight and a reactive rear light makes early rides feel less stressful. The display is a full color screen, and in practice it is easy to read. I used it mainly for speed, battery level, and distance. It also connects to your phone over Bluetooth, and the BikeGo app lets you monitor stats and adjust some settings. I did not live in the app, but I checked it when I wanted to confirm a ride distance or look at basic info. The app experience was not life-changing for me, but it was useful in a simple way. It took a little time to get comfortable with the controls, mostly because there is a lot going on compared to a simpler electric bike. After a couple of rides, it felt normal. Setup was not fully effortless. It comes mostly assembled, but you still need to do real work to get it ready. I followed the instructions, used the included tools when I could, and took my time. I am glad I did, because on a bike this powerful, you do not want to rush assembly. I checked bolts, made sure the handlebars were centered and tight, made sure the brakes felt right, and I did a short, slow ride near my place before I went farther. If you are not comfortable doing that, it might be worth having a bike shop help, but be aware some shops do not love working on heavy dual-motor electric bikes. That is just something to think about. In daily use, the biggest practical downside is the weight. Moving it around a tight space takes effort. If you need to lift it onto a rack, you are going to feel it. If you live upstairs, you are going to think twice. Once it is rolling, the weight becomes less of a problem and more of a stability benefit, especially at higher speeds. I saw top speed around 40 miles an hour in the right conditions, and I will say this clearly, that is not a speed I think most people should use in busy areas. It is there, and it is possible, but it demands space, focus, and good judgment. Over different surfaces, I found it most enjoyable on rough pavement, long stretches of mixed roads, and dirt paths where the fat tires and suspension can do their job. In deep sand or very loose gravel, you still have to ride smart, but the bike does not immediately feel out of control. On smooth bike paths, it almost feels like overkill, and I ended up turning things down and riding it calmly. Reliability so far has been fine for me. I have read that some people have shipping issues or small parts problems, and I believe that can happen with heavy bikes like this. My advice is to inspect everything when it arrives. Look for bent parts, check the wheels, and make sure nothing looks off before you ride. Warranty coverage exists, and it is worth reading the details so you know what is covered and for how long. Overall, my impression is that the Romeo II is built for riders who want strong assistance, long-range potential, and a stable ride, and who are okay dealing with a heavy bike and a more involved setup. It has a learning curve if you are new to powerful electric bikes, but once I got used to it, it was straightforward to live with. I like the comfort, I like the lighting, I like the braking, and I like having the flexibility to use one motor or both depending on where I am riding. I also think it is important to say that it is not the most practical choice for small apartments or for anyone who needs to carry a bike often. Check the comments of this video for a link to see the current pricing of the eAhora Romeo II 2500W dual motor electric bike. Thank you for watching.